Well, good morning. It's 11 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. For some of you, that means a different time. We've got clients of ours that join us from Hawaii, from the other side of the country, and from other countries. Welcome to everyone. This is our officially first talk. We've done talks under the guise of the free WOWbinars that we were doing and realized that we had something. So we created talks as a new content type at schoolofbookkeeping.com. We made it free. And we have guests that will be presenting. We've got a great lineup coming up. Let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Eric Greenspan. I created schoolofbookkeeping.com. And then all of a sudden, I started getting phone calls from accounting folks, bookkeepers, through my other company, 74 Systems, which is a marketing and consulting firm. And now all of our clients are this industry. We created the Ignite program to help build client businesses, build websites, marketing, and client acquisition, and then the entire workflow process. And one of my very favorites, automation. School of Bookkeeping's done really well, but then it hit us, hey, you know what? The other side of the spectrum might need its own focus. So we recently started building schooloftaxes.com. Keep your eyes open for that. We'll be making more announcements soon. Very quickly, the event today is providing free CPE. There are a number of things I want to make sure you're aware of. First of all, your screen, if you can't see everything, schoolofbookkeeping.com talks at the bottom, Monday through Thursday at the bottom right, event primer at the top. If you don't see it well, maximize your whole screen. Oftentimes you can double click in the middle and that'll do it. Look for little hover buttons at the top when you wiggle your mouse. That'll allow you to go up and down, or you can go to the menu. There's a variety of different ways to do it, but try to get your screen full size so that you can see everything. And we have a question in chat. Is this the sales tax after Wayfair event? It is. So along those lines, if you have a formal question that you want a response to, use Q&A, not chat. Chat is fun. Chat is open to everybody. We will try to respond to your questions in chat, but we will not guarantee it. If you put it into Q&A, it'll get queued up, and we will definitely get your question answered before the end of the event. Use chat for open discussion if you want to. If you want to make comments, I see people I know. I'm sure I'll get a couple of hellos. Also, to our presenters, we don't mention people's names in Q&A. Every once in a while it slips out, but we like to try to keep that private. Chat, it's a free-for-all. Please vote in the polls regardless of whether or not you're here for CPE. It really makes it better for us. We're going to wait for everybody to do that each time, and it just click on something and it helps us know what you're looking for and where the needs are. We don't know who you are. We just appreciate it. And then if you're here for CPE, you will get it automatically as a result of attending and responding to the questions. And the first question is going to be the reason why we will send you a CPE certificate. So please respond to our first poll question. Are you attending for CPE credit? We are an official CPE registered sponsor, and we are required to do some of the things we're doing, including these polling questions. So please respond, and we will continue. So I always ask these 4 questions at the beginning of an event, but I've decided that I'm going to focus on just one today. Are you making enough money? I want to just make sure that everybody here recognizes the fact that making money is not a bad thing. If you make too much money, great, give it to charity. If you don't make enough money, then you're going to have problem getting dental work and putting your kids through college. It's safe to make money if you're using it for the right purpose. So make sure that when you get up in the morning and you start your day, that you do something that's going to help you achieve that peace of mind that you deserve one day when you retire or when your kids have a big expense. Mine just gave me a bill for $1,800 for his college tutor, unannounced. So there you have it. And we really want to make sure you're doing what you love, because that's going to allow you to do the best work possible. Today's talk is sales tax expert to tax professional. Now, I didn't know much about the Wayfair ruling at first, but I will tell you, I know a lot about Wayfair. In fact, I'm looking at a pool table across the way that came from Wayfair. And boy, it was an experience I can't even tell you. Wayfair is an interesting business model. It is not an Amazon.com in any way, shape, or form. This is not about that, but I will tell you one of the things I love about Amazon is using Honey. JoinHoney.com. They actually have an office here in Santa Barbara, ironically. We'll send you a coupon while you're in a site. And it's really neat because on Amazon, they will actually guide you to a purchase at a lower price. And almost every time that lower price is a result of no sales tax because it's coming from a different state that doesn't fall into some sort of a sales tax issue. And I will tell you also, I've noticed there are fewer of them. And I'm going to ask our host in a moment to explain that. Today's talk is presented by Matthew Hammond of Avalara. And I'm going to go ahead and welcome him. And I'm going to remind him once again that I've asked that question. Why are there, Matthew, fewer opportunities for shipping product from Amazon without sales tax?
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate everybody for taking time out of your day. And we're going to talk a lot about Wayfair, South Dakota, how that has changed the true landscape of selling. And then also, you know, what it means to be an Amazon seller. And if you are enrolled in the Fulfillment by Amazon program, how will that affect you immediately? How will it impact your selling and your personal sites or in QuickBooks or wherever else you need to invoice or calculate tax? So we will walk through a lot of that information today throughout the slides. Again, my name is Matt Hammond. I'm a national manager here at Avalara. I've been here for over 4 years and focus predominantly on the QuickBooks market and talk to a lot of folks that are, you know, just starting out their business or just building out web pages or new to expansion and having to collect tax and calculate tax and file tax returns in multiple states. So we'll cover a lot of stuff today. I think it'll be very beneficial. I hope walking out of this webinar, you'll have a better insight on Sales Tax 101, Nexus, as well as Wayfair, South Dakota. So a couple learning objectives. You know, why should you even care about sales and use taxes? What technology solutions are out there and can help you stay compliant and achieve compliance moving forward? Which type of solution is the best fit for your organization? If you're just a single state person in Massachusetts and you sell something that's fully taxable, you may not need a solution at all. QuickBooks or whatever, wherever you're selling may do it automatically. I say that because Massachusetts has a flat rate state, and if you're selling stuff that's fully taxable, it's taxable. We'll cover that. And then also, what can you do to ensure a technology project is successful internally? And please, like Eric mentioned, type in any of the questions. We'll definitely leave open some time at the end to address all of those as well.
So before you go on to the next slide, I'm going to just ask for a raise of electronic hands. You can find next to the polling, there's a raise your hand option. Those of you that actually are in the business of dealing with this, are you dealing with use tax? Is that a common part of your business? How many of you are dealing with use? I know that person. Not as many as I expected. You're not paying attention. Let's see. Okay, it's getting better. So I'd say about maybe 20%, Matthew. So I definitely want to make sure, but we get that question a lot about use tax because I think it's not as common, so people don't necessarily, it kind of slips through the cracks, and I think that's part of the problem. Okay.
Sure. All right, so let's talk high level, right? Sales and use tax. Companies are responsible for collecting and remitting sales tax on behalf of its customers for items that are actually taxable. In the U.S. today, there's over 12,000 taxing jurisdictions. So if you're using QuickBooks or whatever accounting package you have today, there's potentially 12,000 tax items you'd have to maintain and manage on an ongoing basis. It's so challenging. It's so difficult. And states make up their own rulings, right? Every state is different. We'll talk about the states that are really challenging. We'll talk about the ones that are really easy. When you're getting into the point and you are selling products and services, there are some exceptions, right? Is the product or service-based item that you're selling even taxable? Do the people you sell your products to, are they even a taxable customer, right? Are they reselling your product? Are they manufacturing, distributing? Are they giving you a piece of paper that says, here's why you cannot or should not charge me tax? Anytime that does happen, you truly want to make sure you're getting the certificate, you're asking for it, it's up to date, it's valid. That is one of the lowest hanging fruits when it comes to a sales tax audit for an auditor. And I believe a year and a half ago, one of the #1 jobs coming out of college was a sales tax auditor. I would assume it's probably going to be trending even more in that same direction now with Wayfair, South Dakota. Again, we'll get to that here shortly. And then taxability exemptions. Every state is different. Some things are exempt in one state and some are not. There are individual forms, exemption certificates, for example, in the state of Florida, expire every year. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. You need to make sure you have those on file, make sure they're up to date. And then if you look at what happens when you're actually selling something, so who, what, when, where, why, how are you selling? Who are you selling to? The customer. Do they have any form of exemption? Are they taxable? Are they the end user? Very important. When? So the invoice date, right? If you have a website, you're using WooCommerce or any of the other platforms out there, you have to have a real-time tax calculation. It's got to have the rules up to date. It's got to determine taxability, and you want to make sure you're using rooftop level calculations, which we'll get into here shortly. And then think about where, all right? You have taxing authorities. You'll hear me say taxing authority a lot. It's just a fancy word for a state or a jurisdiction. So you have ship to, ship from, order acceptance, and then you have addresses that are involved. You need to make sure you have proper address, latitude, longitude, rooftop level calculations. We'll get into those. We'll talk about the sourcing rules. There are some states that are, again, really easy. Then there are some states that have CITES or origin-based for products or destination-based for services. So we'll get into that. And then again, what you're selling, right? Is what you're selling even taxable? Products are typically taxable, fully tangible personal property items, and then services have varying taxability across state lines. I personally live in North Carolina, and they changed the law last about a year and a half ago that says you now have to charge tax on services. So that's a big.
Wait. So I've got North Carolina clients. Does that mean if you are in North Carolina?
If you have an obligation to collect tax, or if you have nexus in North Carolina and you have services as what you sell, it used to not be taxable, and they changed it about a year and a half ago, maybe in 2 years, where they now have to charge tax on services. So like auto shops, mechanics and stuff like that, who always just had it labeled as a service line item, it's now taxable. Yeah, so that just changed about 2 years ago.
The bookkeepers and the tax pros that have joined us today, just openly, for those that don't know, are there states where their services are taxable?
Potentially, yeah. There are quite a few.
Raise your hand if you are dealing with that, if you're charging sales tax on your services. I only got one. I wonder if I got two. Maybe that was an if. I wonder if there are people out there that should be charging services on their, or taxes on their services and don't know it yet. Maybe that's our next talk.
Yeah, potentially. And consultative services or consulting is what I think a lot of bookkeepers in the past have kind of labeled it as. There were only 2 or 3 states, I think a year ago, last time I checked, that did that tax those type of services. They were actually on the East Coast. I want to say it was like North Carolina, Virginia, New York. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll see if I can get some of that information over and send it out. We're not really permitted to give free tax advice, but I'll say a lot of stuff on the call today.
But there's somebody that I see in our audience right now that is, and I'm going to ask that person to do a talk. Maybe you'll join her. That would be great. I'll circle back with both of you. Awesome.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so one of the things everybody's really excited to hear about is Wayfair, South Dakota, and essentially the entire sales tax landscape and community and everything for small to medium-sized business and sellers, people selling online, everything just changed. Within the last 60 days, everything just changed. We'll talk about physical presence here in a minute for Nexus, because that is still the case and it's not going away, but essentially, South Dakota took this to the court, and they said, hey, the way people sell is not the same as how they sold 20, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, where brick and mortars were everything. I mean, everybody knows how retail is changing. So what they did was they went to the Supreme Court, and I think that was a big part of their argument for how they should put some new laws into place. There were already some states prior to this ruling that had economic nexus. Now they weren't, I wouldn't say crazy in force. They weren't, wasn't a lot of talk about them. But now what we're seeing for a lot of the states, and I'll put a little link in here, a page in the chat here shortly so everybody can see it. But for the most part, a lot of states are adopting the thresholds of, if you're doing over $100,000 in gross revenue annually from taxable sales, or if you're doing 200 or more separate transactions in those states, that means you may have to get registered or you may have economic nexus. So if I'm a business that lives in Florida and I do, 75 orders a quarter or a month to Texas, I'm probably going to have to get registered in the state of Texas, even though I never go there. That's really what has changed a lot. And the time now, honestly, and I've said this a few times in some webinars recently, but business owners and CPAs and bookkeepers and CFOs and controllers have always really been reactive to sales tax and sales tax compliance. And if there was ever a time to be proactive, that time has come. It is now time to be proactive, to monitor your sales across the whole country, run reports maybe once a month or once a quarter and see what your dollar amounts are, or look at merely just the states where you do most of your business. If you never sell or ship anything to Arizona, then I wouldn't worry about Arizona. But if you're doing 30 orders a month to New Mexico and they say if you do 200 or more transactions in that particular state, that's a state you're going to have to get registered in. So, watching out for all of those states, keeping an eye on what you're selling on. Avalara, we're a partner. We work with CPAs and bookkeepers. We have a tax advisory services team that can help do a nexus determination. We'll look at your prior 12 months of history, have you answer a bunch of questions and decide or give you an education or a report based on what we think or where you may have nexus and may have obligations. But now's the time to really pay attention to where you're selling. Look at the states where you do most of your business. If you're predominantly in the Northeast or if you have clients that are all, up in the Northeast and that's where the most of their sales are, you want to look at those particular states and keep an eye on, how often and how much you're selling in those particular states and jurisdictions, because now it's really changing and you're going to see a lot of states adopting even more and more. And I'll put the page in the chat here in a second and you can take a look at it, because you'll actually scroll down and I should have prefaced with this, and I may have already said it, but I am 100% not a CPA or a tax attorney, so in no way can I give advice when it comes to sales tax, but I will say this. It is very challenging, and if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, and this is Avalara's page for what we've seen and what all the other states are talking about and which ones are going to put these laws into effect. If you go down to the bottom, it will show you what the individual thresholds are for those individual and particular states. So you can see what a lot of them are leaning towards. Some states are going to say, hey, if you do $250,000 of gross sales for taxable items, you have to get registered in that state. And each individual state is going to be able to make up their own rules, their own thresholds, their own everything. They're going to be allowed to do that. And that's one of the things that is making it a true sales tax nightmare. People thought sales tax was hard before. And when we talk about physical presence here in a minute, it's still important and it is very, very challenging. But now people and business owners are going to have to worry about economic nexus and keep an eye on all of their sales. So very, very challenging, hard times ahead.
From my perspective, and as you know, what we do for a living is help people find opportunity and build their practices. If for my clients that are on here and for everyone else, Brianna, I'm speaking right to you, and you knew this was coming. This becomes a product on your WooCommerce setup. Matthew and I were talking about that earlier, where you now offer a sales tax consulting audit for all of your clients and charge them a fee to go through and analyze this. This is great opportunity for you and a very important service for your clients. We're being asked for an electronic copy of the presentation. The presentation, when it's complete, will be publicly available in its entirety on schoolofbookkeeping.com for free, and we will post it to YouTube. As far as the physical copy of the actual deck itself in like a PDF form, Matthew?
Yeah, we can definitely get that over to everybody once the call is done. We'll make sure we get that to the entire audience.
We'll actually put that then, once we're done, I'll make a PDF of it, put a link at the video, and it'll be in the documents download library for free at schoolofbookkeeping.com just for you folks.
Perfect.
Okay, make it real easy. All right, we ready to move on?
Yep.
Perfect.
And I'm going to speak to a couple things on this next slide. I'm definitely not going to read all these. There's quite a few, but we'll get this out to everyone as well. Between this and then also the Avalara page that talks about the Wayfair South Dakota. But these are a lot of the common questions and really what folks are thinking and asking as it pertains to economic nexus. And one of them, number 9, does physical presence still trigger economic nexus? And 100%, none of that has changed. If you still go on site, well, I'll wait, we'll talk about it here in a couple slides.
Define economic nexus for us, Matthew, just very quickly for those that don't know.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so economic nexus is essentially when you are hitting certain thresholds or you're going to be doing enough selling without having a presence in that state or selling online. For the most part, think online sales or websites, and you're selling to a state and hitting a certain number of transactions and thresholds in those particular states. They're now going to have rules in a bunch of these states stating, hey, once you hit a certain number of transactions, we have deemed you have hit economic nexus. So once you are achieving over 200 transactions a month in South Dakota, even if you live in Washington, at that point, you then will have to get registered to collect tax, charge tax, file a tax return, remit tax in a bunch of these other states. So it's just based on how many total sales and where you're selling and the states that you're selling to and shipping to. So think about, you have your online site, let's say you're using WooCommerce, very common shopping cart, and you're doing 25 orders a month to Florida. And you may be in Washington, and just for some reason, what product or service or product you're selling is shipping to Florida a lot. Those are the states where you're going to attain or encompass economic nexus, which is going to be the requirement to get registered and charge tax in those states moving forward.
So is there like a general template that these states are following, or are they making it up as they go along? I mean, is it 2 transactions? Is it, well, if I sell something, it doesn't really matter, but if I sell a few of them on a regular basis? Or, I mean, is there any kind of rhyme to this reason? I don't know.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I don't really know the logic or have that behind how they got to these thresholds, but for the most part, every state we've seen thus far is if you're doing over $100,000 of revenue, and again, revenue for a taxable item. Now, again, if you have a website, odds are you're selling something that you're going to mail, which is tangible property, which is fully taxable. So $100,000 of annual revenue in a given state, or 200 individual transactions to that particular state. So again, if you're selling to Florida and you're based in Washington, you're doing 25 sales a month. I mean, you're going to hit that after 6 months. Once you have hit that particular threshold, whether it's revenue-based or transaction-based, then you're going to have to get registered to start collecting tax moving forward.
Even
the majority of the states are saying,
if next year your sales cut to 50%, are you still stuck at that threshold?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, once you get registered in a state, then the thresholds are completely irrelevant, right? Going through a deregistration process, and not to go down a black hole because that's a very long conversation, but once you've established nexus in that state, you have to collect tax and file a tax return there forever.
So the argument against this is clearly that this is going to impede growth of small business because they're going to fear hitting their thresholds. I mean, I can see companies getting their businesses up to $85,000 a month in sales and then starting another company to do a similar thing, which probably will be considered fraud down the road. But there's just so many variables and so many things that are going to spin out from this.
Yep. And when we talk about Amazon here in a couple minutes, you'll see full force kind of what a lot of those sellers have to do and how it's impacting them as well.
Wow. Fascinating.
All right, so and we'll send this out, so no need to read the frequently asked questions, but we'll send this to you. Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, so we have another polling question for you, and it is, what is economic nexus? Not that I knew it was coming or anything. I just want to make sure, because that's I don't know that we necessarily think about it as much as we need to now, right? Wow. Give them just a second to respond. Interesting. I know the answer. Raise your hand if you're absolutely certain you know the answer. 100% sure. Perfect. Okay, I'll tell you when you can divulge, not yet. A few more people need to, they're reading. They're reading. You may continue, Matthew. I'm sure that everybody can.
No worries, no worries. We're in no rush. I'm sure there's probably been a lot of folks that have, over the past 60 days, just Googled Economic Nexus and Googled Wayfair, South Dakota. I mean, there's so many pages that come up and so much literature on it.
I was doing it just so that I could find out where the heck my light was. But, and ironically, I learned about it from being a consumer at Wayfair and didn't know. And when you guys presented your topic, I put it together. So I really think, and I'm, I read a lot and I'm in this, but I think a lot of people are just now starting to learn about what's happening. It's hard to keep up with all the news, right?
Yep. Yeah. And when at that time, when we were hearing about how being a state auditor is one of the most popular jobs out of college, that was so eye-opening to us here at Avalera. And even my dad said something. My dad's a big reader. And it's like, I heard this is one of the number one jobs out of college.
The country of Texas, for example, I'm sure I noticed that name pops up a lot. California always seems to, kind of take its place in a different spot. We do have a question. Can you see it? We have two of them, actually.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. I'll run through these real quick. I see both of them. So what about the year in which you reach economic nexus? So you would want to get registered. And again, I'm saying you would want to, but this is not tax advice, disclaimer. Once you hit that threshold, so, okay, we have now hit 200 transactions for the year. That's the point where you would want to then get registered to collect and remit tax moving forward. Can you clarify the economic nexus thresholds? Are they cumulative? So these are annual numbers. So if you are annually doing over 200 transactions a year, if you've hit the 200 annual transaction number in August, you want to then get registered to collect and remit tax. If you're doing like Georgia, for example, and you can see in the link I sent over, Georgia is $250,000 or more in taxable sales for revenue, or 200 transactions. So each state is different. We get updates every day. North Carolina actually just put something out there saying they're going to be taking place in it. There's no reason for every one of the 46 tax collecting states to not do this. If I'm a state who's hurting for revenue, why would I not do this? It's easy.
I'll tell you the one like a Nevada or somebody's going to be the holdout so that they can, create the opportunity for the local real estate market or whatever it might be. Is there one right now that is defying this process?
New Hampshire has never collected tax. They're one of the 4 states. So there's 4 states. So the nomad. So New Hampshire, Oregon, Montana, Alaska, and Delaware. Alaska actually has a city tax, but they don't charge a state tax. But we've been told, and someone sent over a reporter a link the other day where it was that New Hampshire has already taken that stance saying we are not going to enroll and not going to be a part of this. And we kind of knew it was coming because they are one of those 4 states, but they've already taken a stance on it as well. So I'll be interested to see how many more do that.
They do know that our independence back in the 1700s, I think. I'm not sure, maybe not. There's some interest. It's funny. Our country is made up of some spectacular groupings. The segments and the states and what have you. I'm not surprised to hear that. So you said nomads is the acronym?
Yep, the nomad states, the ones that don't charge sales tax.
Got it.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we'll talk a little bit about, I like to call this your sales tax risk profile. So these 4 or 5 things listed here are really what's important. So obviously nexus, where should you be collecting tax? How are you handling the calculations when you do need to calculate tax and report on it? How are you maintaining product and service taxability? And we'll talk about how that varies from state to state. Are you keeping up with the jurisdictional rate assignments? Avalara, we actually have 5 states. They pay us to maintain their rates and boundaries, which is really ironic if you think about it. And then exemption certificates, right? I mentioned earlier, if you're selling to somebody who's going to resell your product, I don't care if they're Best Buy, whoever they are, you have the right as a partner, a CPA, a bookkeeper, a CFO, you have the right and the obligation to ask them for a certificate to prove why they are not calculating tax. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have that, it's on you. It's on the business owner or the controller, whoever is handling those sales, to be able to provide a reason or documentation or piece of paper why you didn't charge them tax. And once you've done all of those things accurately, then you get the fun task of actually filing a tax return and hoping you're doing it right. A lot of the human error factors that come into play that we've seen or I've heard over the past 4 years, just talking about sales tax all day, every day, Monday through Friday, is when people mess up on returns and then they have to go do an amendment or ask for an extension and whatnot. So hypothetically, you do all those first 4 things right there, then you get the fun task of trying to file the tax returns. So we're going to talk a couple minutes about physical presence. And that is not me on the screen, just full disclaimer, that is definitely not me. So nexus is an industry term that states you've established some sort of physical presence or a tie to a taxing authority. And before Wayfair, South Dakota, these reasons were all of the most common reasons where you would have to get registered to collect and remit tax. So let's say you live in Florida. I don't know why I keep saying Florida. I'm based in North Carolina. But let's say you live in Florida and you go to trade shows in Texas. You drop ship products from California. You have locations in 4 other states. You have contract 1099 employees, or you have royalty fees, or you're paying commission to a reseller. These are all reasons why businesses need to get registered to collect and remit sales tax outside of their home state or any other states that they're located in. Always think, and this will never change, regardless of economic nexus, regardless of Wayfair, South Dakota, if you have boots on the ground, if you have inventory in a state, you probably need to highly consider getting registered to collect and remit sales tax in that state. And what does it mean on your invoicing and moving forward? It's that many more states that you're going to have to try to figure out what the sales tax is, calculate sales tax, determine if what you're selling is taxable in all these other states. We talk about Amazon here in a minute. So it is very, very challenging, but these are the most common reasons why people have to get registered to collect and remit tax outside of the state they live in. So again, nexus is an industry term that states you've established some sort of physical presence or a tie to a taxing authority based on a substantial physical presence, in addition to economic nexus, which is just unfolded over the course of the past 60 days.
Hey, Matthew, your company is public now, correct?
That is correct.
What happened after the ruling to your stock price?
I don't know if I should comment on that, but I'll say this. We had a lot more phone calls, and I've done a lot more webinars, and my sales team has been busier than ever. And a lot of people really want to be told what to do. And that's the hard part about my job and what my sales team does is when they call in, they're like, well, I'm calling you because I want you to tell me what to do. And it's hard because unfortunately that's not something we're allowed to do. But what I like to speak to it as, here's what a lot of the other companies we worked with have done. And I'll kind of field it and yield it that way. So, but in answer to your question,
point is it's a good thing for your company's top line, I'm guessing. So, it's even a better thing that you exist right now, because this is a nightmare unfolding. And
100%.
You were one of those kind of companies that I love to have in my bag of tricks. And the reason why is because I can just set it and forget it and not have to worry about that. That's one less thing that I have to worry about, because this is the kind of thing that can consume your day and not allow you to do the other part of your job, which is what makes you a living. So I think it's fantastic that you guys have done so well and you're able to conquer this. So thank you for that. Okay, move on. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. And on a higher level note, yeah, and to piggyback off that, why is it so hard? I mean, think about everything that changes month to month, state to state, year to year. You have content changes, transactions, government filings, records, jurisdictional rates. We'll pause here. We'll open up the poll. Sorry, I got a little too excited there.
No. That's just in the background. Keep talking. This is an easy one for them.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I'll just yell the poll out. So how many states do you currently collect sales and use tax in? We could do two. We should have done two. How many do you currently? And then by the time the webinar is over, how many do you think you need to calculate or collect tax in? So we'll do a two-part process as we do a follow-up. But so you have rate and jurisdictional changes you have to keep up to date. Do you have multiple systems, right? Do you have a shopping cart for your online sales? And then do you have an ERP like QuickBooks or NetSuite or Magento or anything on the back end where you have to calculate tax in both aspects? Collections, payments and receipts, just all of the different processes that are involved in a quote to cash or selling your product. And then think about real-time calculations. You have a website. Websites, the goal of websites are to be up every single day. Somebody should be able to buy your product whenever they want to. You need real-time calculations. You have to have accuracy, and it's very, very important to make sure you're updating rates, rules, boundaries, and whatnot as they relate to sales tax.
Raise your hand if you guys think Avalara should be one of our launch partners for schooloftaxes.com. This is great stuff. Just great stuff. I appreciate it. All right. Where is my mouse? Look at that. Hey, man, that's a lot of hands. I love it.
I like it. And if we run through everything, we should have some time towards the end where we can kind of do some live Q&A. So I'll go a little quicker on some of our slides so we have plenty of time at the end. So I mentioned earlier sourcing rules. I usually start on the far left. I'm going to start on the far right. Most states are destination-based for calculating sales tax, meaning when products are changing ownership or somebody is purchasing the goods and they then own it, that's where sales tax is derived. So where are you shipping the product? Where is it being sent to? California and Texas are very, very tough states. Texas, I mentioned, has 1,485 taxing jurisdictions, right? You have to maintain all of those in QuickBooks or wherever you're selling. But counties are origin-based, and cities and special taxing jurisdictions are destination-based in California. If you're performing a service, they are always going to be destination-based because that's where it's actually happening. And then if you look at some of the states on the far left, they're origin-based for products. So if you live in Tennessee and you're shipping it from Nashville to the complete other side of the mountains over there, you're going to charge tax on that product just based on where you're shipping it from. So where is it origin-based? And then you have destination-based for services. So those are some complex states where you're natively not going to get that or have that tax logic, if you will, built into your shopping cart or built into your accounting package that's going to make that determination. So it is very challenging, very cumbersome, and it's just all the more reason to talk to partners or talk to a company like Avalara or even think about outsourcing sales tax or have a conversation or consult with a CPA or a tax attorney.
So Matthew, I know you're probably going to touch on this, but I'm fascinated by Amazon in every way. I love shopping on Amazon. I found these lights that I've been looking for forever there. I've replaced every bulb. I've got, 150 light bulbs in the house. I replaced everything with LED through Amazon. I have noticed a couple of things. One, there's a special California option for certain things. Is that related to this? Just started happening. Or is it
I'd have to check.
Or is it a lead paint thing? I don't know. And then the other thing is so this is important, but at the same time, if you have a physical store in a state, this isn't going to matter to you because you're already charging sales tax. That's been going on for forever. Amazon acquiring Whole Foods and now having all of these local distribution centers was obviously a massive, big decision at a board level, although Jeff probably does what he wants. But that affected sales, they thought it would, drastically, because that's going to require that all of their sales are sales tax inclusive. But yet there are still many that are not, and I think those are the partners of Amazon that get around it. You mentioned you're going to discuss that later. Should I wait?
Yeah, I have two more slides that are going to come up, and it's not going to be directly pertaining to kind of what you're speaking of, but it's going to be what are the implications of if you're selling your product on Amazon. So I'll wait. I think we're like two slides away, and then we'll get into
here sell on Amazon or work with clients that sell on Amazon or similar? Raise your hand, please. If you work with clients or if you do it yourself, either one. So this is okay. So this is obviously a very important topic for them. Okay, great. A lot of hands. All right, great.
Perfect. These next two, and for a guy who to get excited talking about sales tax, it takes a lot. But these are the next two slides that I think truly usually hit home the most for people that are doing sales tax manually. So I typically ask customers or prospects how do you think you're supposed to calculate sales tax? And 8 out of 10 say, well, it's based on zip codes. I'm going to tell you right now why that is very false and how wrong that can be in certain states. So zip codes don't follow taxing jurisdictions. Excuse me, taxing jurisdictions don't follow zip codes, vice versa. You can have multiple different tax rates, percentages, taxability varying in a single zip code. And the slide after this will make everybody really clear to it. They're going to make you think like you're doing it accurately. Almost every accounting package or shopping cart standard functionality is going to be based on a zip code. They're just going to take the highest rate or the average rate or something like that, so you know that you're at least charging some form of sales tax.
Is that acceptable? Can you get away with that? I mean, if you get audited, are you in trouble?
Potentially. I mean, the thing is, the states don't care how much you charge. They really could care less. If you charge 3% on everything, that's great. But when you owe 9%, because that's the composite tax rate for that state, you're out a bunch of money, and it'll make sense. You can go to the next slide.
Composite tax rate is where you're going with this.
Yep. So let's look at this, and this is my favorite slide. And did you want to launch a poll before I get going?
I could do that. Anybody want to last few? We have some phone-in listeners, so I don't think they're able to vote. Okay. And the next polling question is, customers with transactions in non-economic nexus states shouldn't pay attention to this ruling as it doesn't mark a bigger trend. Can you explain that question a little better? I need help. Customers with transactions.
Sure. So what's important is there are states out there that don't have any economic nexus rulings right now, right? But they can now, with the court ruling, they can change that immediately. So just because South Carolina doesn't say anything about an economic nexus currently, I don't know if that's the state, I'm just making it up, but if they say nothing and then they change that ruling and put it into effect a month later, I'm going to kind of answer the question, so I guess I should kind of tread lightly here. But
everybody answered it the same, so it's safe for you to go ahead.
Okay.
Almost give it one more second. Everybody, last chance. Last chance. He's going to spoil it, but now they're waiting because they don't want to make a mistake. Come on, take a stab. We don't know who you are. That's almost everybody. Okay, go.
Yeah, so 100%. I mean, you need to pay attention to every single state. Now's the time to look at what your total sales are, how many transactions you're doing every month, because they can change a ruling or put a new law in place immediately. I mean, within days. I mean, I think one of the states, I don't remember which one it was, but within a week, they had already gone, met, passed it at the down by the church downtown and said, hey, this is now a rule. And they're starting to monitor and look at all these people that are selling into their state or shipping a lot of products into their state. So definitely have to pay attention to it. Yes.
So the answer to the question is false. Almost everybody got it right. And
good.
Yeah, so that's perfect. All right, let's go ahead and tell us what's going on here.
All right, so this is my favorite slide. And again, for me to get excited about this is just comical. But this is the example of why zip codes aren't always accurate. So this is the same zip code, the same neighborhood, the same street in Commerce City, Colorado. It's a residential neighborhood. All the houses in blue have a tax rate of 9.25%. You can see the composite rate there. It breaks up the Colorado State, Adams, City, County, Denver area.
Brianna Beers, are you paying attention right now? This is your hometown.
All the houses in green or yellow, how it's coming across in the PowerPoint, have a combined tax rate of 4.75%. So that's almost a 5% delta from one side of the street to the next in the same neighborhood, in the same zip code, right across the street. So if you're not using geolocation or rooftop level calculations and you do 1,000 orders a month and you sell it to 7495 Locust Street, and let's just say hypothetically you were charging the wrong rate, or you were charging 4.75 when you should have been charging 9.25, the state, like I mentioned a minute ago, doesn't care how much you're charging. They really don't care. But if you are supposed to remit 9% on your $8,000 worth of sales, that's what they want, and that's what you're going to pay. So this is why we say zip codes aren't accurate. They're not the right tool for the job, and they can really, really put you in a pinch and give you a false sense of security that you're doing it right.
And how frequent does this? Oh, by the way, I like that. That's 74th place. Thank you for that. Was that for me? I love that. Okay, but how? And they're both 74. A lot of 7400 block. I love it. God, I need to take a moment here. Thank you. So the frequency of what you're showing us, is this pretty regular?
It's really popular in states like Louisiana, Alabama, and Colorado. So those are what we consider home rule states, meaning there are local rules, local jurisdictions, local taxes where you may have to file and remit a local return, remit local tax, as well as filing a state return and a state level tax. Like Louisiana has parishes. If you have enough of a presence in those parishes, you're gonna have to file an individual return. I told a guy 2 weeks ago, he files, I think, 78 returns a month in Colorado, in one state.
What about our hometown of Ohio with all the townships? Same concept?
Yeah, Ohio is not typically as hard. I mean, what's going to happen there is you're going to charge a certain percentage, and it's going to have a breakdown, kind of like what you're seeing here. But you're just going to remit that tax back to the state, and then they're going to disperse it on their own. There's no local remittance, no local filings like Louisiana, Colorado, and Alabama.
Fascinating. Just fascinating.
Yep.
By the way, you have,
all right,
you have 100% attention, Matthew. 100% of the people that joined us are still with us. Well done.
I love it. And now we're getting to the fun part, Amazon FBA. So what does it mean to enroll in the Fulfillment by Amazon program? So if you look at the screen on the right, or the screenshot, those are all of the states that have an Amazon warehouse. Now, of those 30 states, 26 of them deem that third-party inventory is a nexus building activity. So think about that. 26 states clarify on the Department of Revenue website that, hey, inventory in a state is considered nexus building. Now, I said 26 of 30. Delaware doesn't do tax. New Hampshire doesn't do tax. Oregon, where there's a bunch of warehouses, does not even collect tax. The other one, I think, is New Hampshire has one. You'll see North Carolina. I live in North Carolina. North Carolina is a sorting center. It's not a fulfillment warehouse. So just by enrolling in the FBA program, you potentially have to get registered in 26 states to collect tax, file tax, remit tax, send a return in. And then in QuickBooks or in WooCommerce on your site, you're then going to have to maintain tax on all of those states if you ship there as well. So the Fulfillment by Amazon program is very, very challenging, and the states are really going after people and trying to find those sellers. Like, for example, Massachusetts handed over a list of every person in the Fulfillment by Amazon program. They found them. They have a list. Every other state wants that list, and they're going after those businesses that have only ever charged tax in this state or never charged tax or filed a tax return in Massachusetts, and they're probably having a heck of a time. It's not good, and it's just the beginning. Economic Nexus, Amazon FBA, all of these things are just screaming, I should probably talk to somebody who knows more about this or can even have a conversation with me and get advice from a CPA or a tax attorney.
Everybody on this call needs to get off this call today when you're done and build a new page on your website offering this as a service. This is a moneymaker for you and so needed by the business community that we serve. Absolutely critical that this happens. I'm going to have to come up with some way to help you do that, but definitely, folks, opportunity is just screaming at us right here.
And to that note, I mean, the states are doing this, and there's so much more attention around it because they may not really be too focused on, oh, you didn't collect tax for 10 years. But what they want and what the goals are for people to start getting registered, start filing a tax return, start handling remittance and giving the states their free money. I mean, sales tax is a pass-through expense. If I live in North Carolina and I deliver products into Virginia on my own trucks, guess what? I'm passing through Virginia to complete a sale or handle a service. I need to then give them their free 6% or whatever it is. So now's the time to be proactive. Now's the time to talk about this because it is very challenging. It's not going away, and it's going to get even more and more. And those little red dots you see on there, I'm sure more and more are going to pop up. There's a lot in California and a bunch in Texas.
Oh, it's crazy. We order on Friday and it shows up on Saturday, even though it said it was going to show up 2 business days. And it's because we have one in Isla Vista next to UCSB. And it's fascinating. I think, I'm a pretty big customer of Amazon. I think they stock my stuff on purpose. I mean, I know that clearly they're stocking the things that people need. And there's a couple of obscure things that I buy that they always have in stock now. The company is really something. But again, the more they expand, the more it's going to hurt their business. And this goes back to the question I asked you earlier. I love when Honey pops up in Amazon and says, no, buy this. It's $6 cheaper. It'll be 1 day longer and you don't have to pay sales tax. That's happening less and less.
And they have an algorithm per what you're talking about to where they're going to put your products in locations where they ship to the most so they can get them to you the fastest. That's a fact.
They care more about speed of delivery than they do about price. That is a fact. Don't think for a second, folks, that you're always getting the lowest price on Amazon, because it's just not true. You may get a low price in relative comparison to other resellers, but be careful. Be careful. There's a particular taco sauce that I tried to buy there when it wasn't available in our local shopping area, and it was 4 times more expensive, and I didn't even think about it. Anyhow, this is a real eye-opener.
And marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, Jet, those are all calculating a tax. They're closed systems, so to speak. Avalara offers a prep and filing tool where we'll pull all your Amazon data. You can upload all of your eBay data. You can sync whatever marketplace you're selling on, and we'll just recognize that, okay, you sold X, here's how much tax it was, and then we can offer a prep and filing solution where there's no calculation, but it's at least a compliant way to file tax returns should you be selling on a marketplace.
You know, it's mind-blowing to me that all the clients I serve, including Brianna, who just mentioned publicly that she uses Avalara. She's a big client of ours and a wonderful client. And even for her, and I'm shaking my head and she's looking at me, pointing her finger at me right now. I can't really see that, I'm guessing. Why we never offer sales tax consulting, is it, I mean, clearly now it's more important than ever. Does anybody have sales tax as a service on their website? Raise your hand, please. One hand. Well, that person is on it. One hand. How many of you want it on their website now? Raise your hand. Boom. The hands go up. Yeah, it's a big money maker. Matthew, thank you. This is great stuff.
All right, so I see we have about 6-7 minutes left on the hour here, and I can go a couple minutes over if need be. But if you want to launch your poll, and then I'll kind of speak to the screen and why it says that.
How do you currently calculate and remit? So we're basically finding out, are you an Avalara customer? We've got 2 questions in Q&A, by the way, but we'll get to those. Don't think we won't, folks. We will get to them. A lot of manual. I'm hoping not a lot of Avalara customers, because that's good for you, Matthew. I want you to get some benefit out of today. And there aren't, we've only got 1 person so far. That's great news. So these are people interested in your service. That's great. Just great. Okay, you can continue.
All right, perfect. So this is kind of where I stop and just talk a little bit about kind of Avalara, not to get you to buy Avalara, but just kind of what we do. So think about everything you've done in the past 2 weeks. Did you buy a coffee? Have you made cell phone calls on your way into the office? Have you filled your car up with gas? If you purchase less than 6 bagels in Texas, it's non-taxable. The second you do more than 6, it then becomes taxable.
Wait, what? To me?
So if you purchase, just in general, so if you're purchasing bagels in Texas, if you do less than 6, they're non-taxable. The second you get more than 6, they become taxable.
So the point of sale system at Starbucks automatically charges sales tax for 6 or more bagels?
Potentially. That's how funky sales tax rules are. If you get a bagel in New York and they slice it, there's a service involved, so they consider it taxable. If you order it whole and there's no slice, it's non-taxable. That's how funky it is. There's so many different rules.
But this is how they fund those programs that they can't figure out where are we going to find the money? Let's start charging for sliced bagels. I mean, this really goes on in this world, right? Unbelievable.
Exactly. And if you click one more button here, this is where I kind of talk about just really how much Avalara has done for a volume. So we're going to calculate over 6 to 7 billion transactions this year. So if you're buying something on a website, I love to name names, but we don't really do that. But if you're buying something and they're calculating tax or you're being charged tax, odds are Avalara is probably the one calculating that tax. When I say gasoline and telephone and sales tax, we handle excise tax, we handle communications tax. So we have all of these different taxes that we're helping automate for businesses. I actually have a couple sales reps in Denver, Colorado, Greenwood Village, and they work on the MyLodge. So we do lodging taxes for Airbnb and VRBO. We have a filing solution for those. It's a great business model, and we help file returns and get people licensed and registered for short-term rentals. So odds are you're probably using Avalara or being charged tax, and Avalara is the tax engine behind that calculation.
Before you go on, this funny comment, Peter said in chat that in Ontario, I assume this is Canada, not California, if you buy less than 6 buns, I don't know what a bun is, that must be a Canadian metaphor or Canadian word term. I don't know what do you call, what's a bun? Are we talking about like hamburger buns? Yes, hamburger buns. So if you buy a pack, so is it safe to say that they put 7 buns in the package in Canada so that they're actually tax exempt? Or do you see most, because they're almost always 6 buns. 6 is exempt. Oh, 6 or more. Okay, so you never see buns in a 3-pack. You can buy loose buns. That's crazy. I never would have imagined. Wow.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how our solution works within platforms. So Avalara is a cloud-based offering. We don't come on site. You can click it one more time. You connect it, you download it, you tell us where you want us to calculate sales tax, what products and services you're selling, and then from there, anytime you run an invoice or save it or do a sales order or somebody checks out on your website and it's in a state you have told us you want us to calculate tax, it will call our tax engine in under 0.2 of a second. We'll calculate tax, determine if the products or services or line items, if you will, are taxable, and then we put that right back in under 0.2 of a second.
Now, Matthew, why would you choose one over the other? For example, let's use Brianna, since you've been openly discussing this with us, and she's a client of yours as well. And this will be beneficial to her and everyone. Right now, I'm guessing, Brianna, are you doing it through QuickBooks Online, I'm guessing? Is that how you're doing it? Because I know we're not doing it through the CRM, because I would be involved in that. Okay, so she said, yeah. So theoretically, if we're trying to move her over to a different type of a billing system, in part, and she does have a very robust CRM, why would you want to do it at the CRM level versus at the e-commerce level versus just let it happen at the billing level with QuickBooks Online if in fact everything eventually ends up there anyhow?
It really depends on where you need tax calculated. All of our e-commerce integrations, WooCommerce, 3D Cart, Xcart, you have the option to just turn a get tax call on, so that person can actually go on your website, check out, we'll calculate tax, they'll see the tax, and then you can actually commit that or invoice that out of the ERP. Very common, but it really just depends on where you need tax calculated. We calculate and plug into over 600 different applications, so it depends on how you're selling your product, where you need us to collect tax. And if you're on QuickBooks Online and then you upgrade to a NetSuite, 2 years later as you grow, we have an integration for a lot of those platforms as well.
So the real
And there
answer,
was a question.
the real answer, I think what you're saying, for me at least, is that it's at the point of sale, wherever the transaction occurs. If you're billing in arrears, you do it in QuickBooks Online. That's a no-brainer. But if somebody's buying from you on their website, you need to be able to calculate the tax amount at that given time to be able to collect it, store it, and then pass it up to the Board of Equalization or wherever it goes.
Correct. And there was two questions that got put in the Q&A box, but I want to answer one real quick. So Amazon started collecting tax in Washington on behalf of Amazon FBA sellers. If you don't sell on any other networks, or if you don't sell on any other channels, or you have no other reason to collect tax, Amazon's going to be remitting for those particular companies. So there are Washington and Pennsylvania are two states where you may not have to get registered to. Speak to a CPA tax attorney where they can give you direct advice on how to do that. But those are two states where they're remitting for the companies on behalf if their only reason they need to charge tax is due to FBA.
Okay, you've got three more questions. Does Avalara still integrate with Xero?
So we actually provide Xero with just up-to-date tax rates every month based on kind of zip code and zip +4. We've never gotten to the point where we've built out a direct integration where we can plug in like you're seeing on the screen. It's been on a level of the partnership. It's been kind of an ongoing trying to make it work, and we still haven't. But I don't doubt that it'll happen sometime in the near future.
Thank you.
So for that particular one, we just offer a prep and filing solution.
Okay, so the first question, which we've been holding on to. Thanks for doing this. I recently purchased an item online and received notification that while the seller was not collecting sales tax, they would be notifying my state that I made the purchase. As CPAs preparing business and individual tax returns, we need to address this with our clients because I believe that states are going to continue to step up sales use tax collections thoughts. Now, we can't give you the advice that you're asking us to give you, but my guess is what's going on here is they're collecting data so they can analyze it.
Correct.
That's my guess. But you answered your own question. Yes, you guys need to be aware of this stuff. I mean, I think you probably got this answer between now and when you asked the question. So, and then the last one, with the FBAs, do you need to remit tax in two places if the destination state is different than where it's shipped from? Did you answer that?
Somewhat. I mean, certain states, Amazon is already charging a tax, right? You're just going to go in the settings and pay them, I think, 0.002% or something like that for them to calculate tax. All you have to do is make sure you remit the tax at the state level in those locations wherever you charge tax. Short answer, but and I don't want to go too far into the hour, but we can go real quick on some of these last few slides. So how it works, you save an invoice like you normally do. If you're using Avatax and we're plugged in, when you go to save that invoice, if the ship to address is in the state you told us at the time of sales order, quote, estimate, whatever, it's going to reach out to our tax engine, which is represented by the A in the cloud. And in real time, we'll properly assign the rates, rules, boundaries, product taxability, and then put that back into QuickBooks in 0.2 of a second. From there, we can offer the full compliance package where we will file the tax returns and then handle the remittance as well. We have a white glove managed return service that we offer, which is around $50 roughly for the tax returns to be filed. Depends on volume. Our pricing, again, is totally based on volume for calculations, for returns. The more transactions you do, the lesser cost per transaction. The more returns you do or file through us, the lesser cost per return.
Hey folks, just a quick heads up as we wrap things up here. If you're not a free or paid member of schoolofbookkeeping.com, go ahead and sign up at least for the free one if you like this, because that's how we're going to communicate with you about upcoming talks. So go to schoolofbookkeeping.com and either register for free or start a trial, and then that's how you will be notified. Hopefully Matthew will come back and tell us more.
Sure. And this is everything that goes into a tax determination if Avalara is calculating. We validate the address. We actually ping it off the Postal Service preferred format, latitude, longitude. When we do rooftop level calculations, we're going to look at the address, convert it to lat long, see if it's a state you told us you have an obligation to collect tax. Then we handle all their sourcing rules, tax holidays, thresholds, anything that's going to be applicable based on that ship to address. and then we'll look at the actual item that you're selling and to determine if or it is not taxable once you've mapped it to an Avalara system tax code, because part of it is telling us what you sell. Do you sell clothing and apparel? Do you sell belts? Do you sell SaaS, etc.? That's everything that happens in 0.2 of a second.
Do you have a Zapier integration?
Oh, which one?
Zapier?
I have not heard of that, but I'm sure if I spend a few minutes in my Salesforce, I'd be able to let you know.
It's an automation tool that basically connects all of what's out there to all of what's out there. So it's the intermediary for when you don't have a direct connection. I'll take a peek and I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Here you can just see all of our integrations. We plug into ERPs, e-commerce, point of sale, and CRMs. We have about 650, last time I checked, connectors and certified integrations. Good. I'm not going to read all of this. I'll just kind of leave it on the screen. You can see how long it takes to set it up. So if you're just in one state, you can purchase our software on our website. You can work with my sales team if it's a more comprehensive assisted sale. If you just collect tax in one state and you sell 2 items, probably can configure everything in a couple minutes. Downloading the QuickBooks integration or the 3D card or the X card can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, depends on how many states you collect tax in. Filling out the forms, you'll sign a power of attorney, put banking information in so we can pull the funds from your account that you designate. We file the returns, we handle the remittance, we answer tax notices.
For those of you that do use WooCommerce, Brianna, you're going to love this. That's why I go this route. The same company that builds a lot of the systems that we use built their integration. Super, super excited about that. They do great work.
All right, so I'm going to lead this up here, 5 steps to reduce risk, and I actually have some folks that are looking at me that I need to get out of my room, so I'm going to go real quick. But evaluate where you have an obligation to collect tax. Look at the systems, make sure they're tax sensitized. You're making sure you know you at least have some information or a form of calculating tax. Look at the cost of what you want to have. Like, what would be great? I really want to have you calculate the tax, but I can file the returns, right? What's the must-have? I have to have somebody file returns because I don't feel good about doing it. Make sure, buy-in from everybody and talk about who's going to be involved in a tax project and what technology improvements can be made throughout the process.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you to Matthew Hammond from Avalara. That was awesome.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Was great. This one was great. Any last words?
On my end, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. If you want to have a conversation, if you want to talk to myself or a sales rep, please reach out to Eric. We can definitely set up a time. If you have specific questions, please feel free to either email them over. The slide deck will go out with my email, or if you want to set up a time to watch a demonstration, or if you want to be a partner or anything along the lines of sales tax or Avalara, please feel free to reach out. But thank you, everyone, for your time.
Matthew, you may depart. I will wrap this up if you need to go.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, Matthew. Thank you. Last question. Will the Wayfair decision affect your business or businesses you help with sales tax? I think we're going to get pretty easy answers here. Additional questions. Matthew's gone. We went over. We've got a lot covered. I think you all need a break. You deserve it. I want to say thank you. Stay in touch with us. We've got lots more great stuff coming. Register at schoolofbookkeeping.com either as a free or go for it. You can watch all the cool stuff that we do. It's pretty nominal, and we thank you so much for being here. We'll see you at our next schoolofbookkeeping.com talk.